Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Alan with another episode of the Morlog Morning Digest. I want to say I apologize for not giving you guys the content that you deserve on a regular basis. Got a lot of personal stuff going on, health issues. I've gotten a lot of dental work taken care of this month. I've had 7 teeth pulled, alright? And it was worth it. I feel better than I have in 15 years, right? But there was a lot of pain in the process. I'm glad that it's out of the way. And we're moving forward, all right? I also want to say with everything that's been going on recently in the world, it's just been taxing and exhausting on top of it. So I'm going to try to stay away from political topics for the most part unless something really fires me up, which is why you haven't seen me jump on board this whole Trump has coronavirus train. It's why you haven't seen me jump on this whole Amy Coney Barrett train or the RBG train. Like, I'm just beating a dead horse at this point. But I do want to talk about the second wave. And as I've said in the past, this was 100% predictable, and it's being pushed 1 month before the election. Now, I don't mention that because of the political nature of the election itself, but the simple fact that there's no way that we can mention the coronavirus and not talk about the 2020 elections, all right? It goes hand in hand. As I just stated in the prologue to the video, President Trump has coronavirus right now. But I also want to talk about something I pointed out a while ago about a president from South America who decided to have a bunch of inanimate objects, right, tested for coronavirus. And as I talked about in this other video, there was a papaya, a goat, right, grass, tree clippings, just a bunch of different random stuff that he hit with the swab for the coronavirus test, right? Put human names on all of this stuff and sent it away to a lab. And a lot of it came back positive. Now, it's also been proven, right, that the common cold, as well as a bunch of strains of flu, can lead to false positive tests. So if you have a goat, a papaya, grass clippings testing positive, right, that just goes to show that the tests are completely inaccurate or just complete bunk to begin with. But then on top of that, a lot of these tests will show a positive test if you have a simple common cold because it's a coronavirus, all right? It's not, these tests aren't designed in a manner in which it only picks up COVID-19. Now, I want to say this. What happens every year right around this time? We see the seasonal flu spike, all right? And as I just stated, coronavirus, all right, is COVID-19 that they say is a pandemic. If you have that common cold or that flu and you take a COVID-19 test, chances are pretty high, in my opinion, of course, that you're probably going to test positive for COVID-19. And in fact, I think this is how they're inflating their numbers, okay? So, we see it happening right now in New York. The governor, Cuomo, right, decided he was going to shut down a bunch of counties who were testing positive at a rate of 3% or higher. Now, you notice how I said testing positive, right? You notice how they're not mentioning the death rate anymore. They're only mentioning the positive test rate, okay? And something you have to understand about this number is the United States is testing in a manner in which no other country is. So every other country out there right now is only testing people who are sick, all right? So you have to be admitted to the hospital showing heavy symptoms, right, in order to be tested for COVID, in order to show up as a positive test. Now, the United States is doing the complete opposite. If you even think that you have COVID, you can acquire a test very easily. Not only that, but we're testing a bunch of people all the time just in order for them to live their daily lives. Think about all of the sports athletes, all of these people that are getting tested just to go into work. every correspondent in the White House, for example, every host on TV, the Joe Rogan podcast, etc., etc., etc. All of these people that have no signs of COVID are getting tested. So as I've stated before, if you have the common cold in your system, you can show up as a positive test and never have COVID at all, display absolutely no symptoms of it, but still show up as a positive number. Whereas in these other countries all over the world, they're only testing people they know are sick. And even in those countries, let's say you have a really bad case of the flu and not COVID, it might show up as a COVID positive. So even with the numbers from these countries that are only testing people that are positive, chances are the actual rate of infection from this so-called virus is a hell of a lot lower than we're being told. But the thing that's really interesting about this is, statistically, the death rate and infection rate for this pandemic falls right in line with what we expect to see with any seasonal flu. And they want to say that it's because this thing is mutated into a different version of itself. It's not the same thing as 4 or 5 months ago, whereas I'm more inclined to believe that it's always been akin to a seasonal flu. I will admit, right, I overreacted to this thing a little bit in the beginning, but that's because nobody had any clue as to what was going on. Now, I honestly think this whole scenario with President Trump catching COVID was no accident. And who's to say that he might have gotten the seasonal flu himself and tested, but it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. It's absolutely irrelevant. Because what he did the other day in the hospital goes leaps and bounds for curing the mindset of the American people when it comes to how they think about this thing. And this isn't about politics. This is about delivering a message of hope to people that need to hear it. Because let's think about this. He's overweight, right? High risk category. He's 74 years old. High risk category. He gets very little sleep, which means his body has very little time to produce antibodies and replenish white blood cells, etc., etc. High risk category. He's under a bunch of stress 24/7. He's the president of the free world, right? High risk category. So what this man can do now is get in front of the country, which is what he did last night, and say, I beat this, you can beat this, we're in this together, all right? And it also gave him the ability to talk about the therapeutics that are coming to the market, which is an alternative to a vaccine that is going to be shortly pushed on the entire country. What I want everybody to remember is that this whole pandemic and this whole second wave is 100% manufactured propaganda and has been engineered to put fear into you and yours, right? Your family, your neighbors, your countrymen, everybody all over the world, right? And what that fear does is it allows something that feeds off of that fear to gain power and influence in our reality. And that's exactly what this whole pandemic is boiling down to, is mass hysteria and fear being spread worldwide. And believe me when I tell you, there is an entity out there that is pulling the strings behind the curtains that feeds off of that fear, that anguish, right? That stress. All of that feeds the beast. And the more you can do to understand the plan that has been used to deceive you, the easier it is for you to have the right mind frame in order to approach this situation properly and see it with clear eyes and not feed that system that's looking to leech off of you. I hope you guys enjoyed the content. There's links in the description below for my PayPal as well as my BitChute, and I have a Bitcoin link as well. I also ask that you guys please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Have a wonderful day. God bless. Take care of yours and yourself. At the end of the day, it's all you really have.